Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. Have you ever noticed how the most successful leaders just command a room? And they do it without ever resorting to that toxic, over-the-top intimidation? Well, today we're going to explore the exact psychology and science behind how true authority actually works. Seriously, think about it. Why do some leaders command massive respect without saying a single word? It is definitely time we bust that outdated workplace myth that the loudest, most aggressive person in the room is somehow the strongest. Because as we'll see, true authority is actually built on a foundation of quiet confidence, razor-sharp communication, and deep psychological awareness.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda. We're going to deconstruct this whole concept layer by layer, covering demystifying executive presence, the psychology of confidence, the physicality of authority, the language of leadership, mastering decision-making, and finally, authority without intimidation.
So, Part 1, Demystifying Executive Presence, moving beyond the vibe.
This brings us right to a foundational definition. The term was actually coined by Sylvia Ann Hewlett back in 2014, and she defines executive presence as a leader's it factor, a combination of gravitas, communication, and appearance used to engage, align, inspire, and move people to act. You can kind of think of it as your professional leadership vibes, but it's not just about looking the part. It's a highly measurable combination of how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you project credibility to everyone around you.
And if you're wondering why this really matters, check this out. According to data from the Center for Talent Innovation, highlighted by the Ivy Business School, out of 268 senior executives surveyed, a massive 67% stated that gravitas is the absolute most important factor when deciding who gets promoted to leadership. Gravitas is essentially your ability to signal to others that you're steady, credible, and truly ready to lead. It's literally the missing link between just doing good work and actually moving up the ladder.
All right, Section 2, the psychology of confidence, calibrated versus overconfidence. Now, in both business and politics, leaders often feel this immense, crushing pressure to appear completely certain all the time. Research from Harvard Business School explains how this creates what they call a confidence arms race. To see this dynamic in action, researchers point to the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic in January 2020. Then President Donald Trump told reporters he wasn't worried about a pandemic, projecting maximal certainty. On the flip side, public health officials like Anthony Fauci often had to navigate intense public pressure by actively communicating scientific uncertainty. The research highlights a really interesting point. While projecting absolute certainty historically earns short-term public approval, escalating it just to out-project your rivals actually makes those signals uninformative. It risks locking leaders into overconfident assumptions that are totally untethered from reality.
So what's the alternative? It's learning the crucial difference between toxic overconfidence and calibrated confidence. Overconfidence fakes certainty and ignores experts. Calibrated confidence, though, reports uncertainties honestly while staying totally accurate to reality. The Harvard researchers use a great example of this, a young Jeff Bezos pitching Amazon. He actually told his early investors there was a 70% chance they'd lose their entire investment. By being completely truthful about those risks, he built immense credibility. He expressed uncertainty, sure, but with incredibly well-calibrated confidence in his assessment of reality.
Moving on to Section 3, the physicality of authority, the neuroscience of first impressions.
Now, what's really, truly fascinating about this next point is this tiny number, 100 milliseconds. Research on first impressions shows that people make trait judgments about your leadership ability in just 100 milliseconds. That is a tenth of a second. Observers are evaluating your posture, your facial expression, and your stillness literally before you even finish your first sentence. And this isn't about faking it. It's about perfectly aligning what you know internally with what your body is signaling externally.
So here are the highly actionable physical cues you can use to command any room. First up, grounded posture. Psychologists call this embodied cognition. Basically, an open, upright posture actually increases your own internal sense of agency while outwardly signaling competence. Second, stillness. It turns out high-status individuals actually move less. They don't fidget and they don't rush. Third is calibrated eye contact. You're aiming for anchored attention here, because too little reads as insecure, but too much reads as aggressive. And fourth, proxemics, which is really just how you use space. Sitting centrally and claiming your space reinforces that you belong there. Put it all together, if you've got a toxic colleague who keeps interrupting or trying to physically crowd you, just keeping both feet firmly grounded, remaining perfectly still, and holding steady eye contact can instantly neutralize their attempt to rattle you.
Next up, Section 4, the language of leadership, speaking with clarity and command.
There is just a stark night and day difference between passive and active language. If you find yourself constantly softening your statements with phrases like, "I think maybe we could consider," or using the passive voice like, "The report was finished," you are unconsciously signaling uncertainty. You're distancing yourself from your own hard work. Instead, flip that to active, direct statements. Say, "I recommend this strategy," or "I led the initiative." Eliminating those tentative hedge words isn't arrogant at all. It's absolutely essential for taking clear ownership of your ideas and projecting real gravitas.
And then there is the strategic pause. Relying on verbal fillers like like, and, makes you appear totally unprepared. Rushing to answer questions just makes you seem reactive. Instead, when you're hit with a really tough question, just pause. Take a breath. A solid 2-second pause commands profound respect. I know. The discomfort you might feel in that silence is temporary, but the authority you project from it is lasting.
All right, Section 5, Mastering Decision-Making, the DASI model. Let's walk through the DASI framework. It's a brilliant model for clarifying exactly who owns a decision. D is for the driver. That's the person responsible for corralling all the stakeholders and pushing to get the decision made. A is the approver, and this is critical. This is the one person who ultimately decides. The buck stops with them. C stands for contributors. These are the folks who offer subject matter expertise. They have a voice, but they do not have a vote. And I is for the informed, the people who simply need to be notified of the final result. Clarifying these roles is a total game changer. It prevents that agonizing trap of sluggish group consensus while also completely avoiding the resentment that comes from strict top-down coercion. It just creates this amazing environment of clear, respected authority.
Finally, Section 6, Authority Without Intimidation, the ultimate leadership test.
According to insights from Trueworth Wellness and a massive RAND Corporation study on military leadership out in the field, relying on fear-based authority carries severe, hidden costs. When leaders publicly humiliate their staff, micromanage every little detail, act purely out of egocentrism, or use unpredictable moods to generate fear, they force their teams into literal survival mode. And in survival mode, people stop sharing ideas, creativity dies, and your highest performers, they exit. Sure, intimidation might create some temporary, short-term compliance, but it absolutely destroys long-term commitment and psychological safety.
I want you to really consider this profound observation from Lee Ellis, a former prisoner of war. He said, "Honorable leaders are secure in themselves, and because they have good values and courage, they can do the right thing even when it's hard." Extreme pressure environments like military combat and POW camps prove, without a doubt, that enduring authority is never rooted in leading by fear. It's rooted in setting the example, maintaining your emotional regulation, treating everyone with dignity, and leading from the front.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to take away from today's explainer. Control isn't the goal, respect is. Authority today is all about quiet confidence. It's that grounded posture, calibrated eye contact, active language, and totally clear decision-making. Knowing all of this, how will you lead your next high-stakes meeting? Take these psychological principles, put them to the test out there, and just watch how the room responds to your presence. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.